Welcome to the IC2 Toronto chapter, where cybersecurity professionals come together to learn, connect, and grow.
Joining our chapter means joining a community of like-minded individuals dedicated to advancing the field of cybersecurity.
Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting your career, our events and resources cater to all levels of expertise.
Being part of ISC2 Toronto has helped me stay up to date with the latest trends in cybersecurity.
The networking opportunities that I've made here have been invaluable.
I've made connections that help me both professionally and personally.
From monthly meetups to special guest speakers, there's always something happening at ISC2 Toronto chapter.
Join us today.
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 Join us today and take your cybersecurity career to new heights with ISC2 Toronto chapter.
All right, perfect. So welcome to M&P. Contrary to popular belief, the N does not stand for ing. Okay, I just set the record straight. So myself, Eugene, so I'll give an introduction in a second, but online with me, working remotely, is Ryan Duquette. I'll have him introduce himself in a second as well. Ryan is Okay. Is our partner that leads our digital forensics team here at M&P. We'll go through all the intros in a second. The agenda today, so like I said, we'll do kind of the intros. I thought I would do a little bit about my background. We were supposed to have Sam Smagala speak today. He leads our incident response team. Unfortunately, he fell ill. So you're kind of stuck with me today. So I'm going to kind of twist it a little bit as far as my experience goes. I've been doing cyber for a long time. So we'll share some of those stories. We'll do an overview of DF that Ryan's team leads, as well as some of the cybersecurity services that we have here at M&P. And we're going to make this interactive. So we're going to go through a few case studies, and we're going to ask you folks who you would call in the event of this incident. Would you call digital forensics, or would you call the incident response team? Right? So keep that in mind as we go through our presentation. Are you familiar with M&P, who we are, what we do? Do not? Okay, for those of you that aren't aware, you're familiar with the big four consulting firms, right? We're number 5. The easiest way I can describe it. Started in Brandon, Manitoba, so very community-based. We're 100% Canadian. We've got, I think, 8,700 employees now from coast to coast, with, I don't know, 1,600 or so partners. So a little bit about me. I am certainly not active on LinkedIn. I was looking at my screenshot here before we got started, and it says that I'm located in Burlington, Ontario. I haven't lived in Burlington in 17 years. So that's number one that I'm going to start with. I've literally only ever had one job in my entire life. So I graduated, I think, master with a Bachelor of Commerce in 98. And basically I did some IT stuff, did some Y2K things. That company closed down, and I started NCI in 2000. Stood for Net Cyclops Inc. I got a thing for 3-letter acronyms. Please don't make fun of the name. It was really cool in 2000. I swear you guys were around back then. And then I sold the business with my business partner in 2016 to M&P to start their cybersecurity practice nationally for the firm. Okay, so that's a little bit about my background. Just so you know, I have a 5-digit CISSP number for ISC. I don't know if there's anyone else here that's got a 5-digit number. Do you really? Okay, congratulations again. And the fun fact too, ISC actually kicked me out because I didn't submit my CPEs. So if there's any lesson you can learn from tonight, just make sure you submit the CPEs. And they actually make you write the exam all over again, which was a horrible experience. So that's it for me, and I will pass it over to Ryan, who can just give a little introduction for him.
Perfect. Thanks, Eugene. So I'm standing in, as Eugene mentioned, I'm standing in for Sam, who fell ill. So I was told not too long ago, hey, you're presenting to the group. So I apologize I couldn't be there in person. I just had some prior stuff I have to take care of this evening, so I'm actually at home right now. So my name is Ryan Duquette. I'm a partner at the firm, and I'm the national leader for our digital forensic practice. And I'll explain a little bit later about how we differentiate aspects of digital forensics here at MNP. I'm former law enforcement. I was with Peel Police for many, many years, most of that time doing digital forensics. And then I founded a boutique digital forensics and cybersecurity consulting firm and ran that with a partner for some time. From there, I jumped over to RSM and I led their cyber team nationally. I think there's at least one person in the room, hi Horia, who used to work for that group. So, and I've been with M&P now about 15 months. Brought over to lead the national digital forensic practice over here, and we have digital forensic labs in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, and Montreal, so teams right across the country. So that's me in a nutshell. And unlike Eugene, you can find me all over LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. So I thought I would just walk you through about what's passionate for me in cybersecurity. I've been in this industry a really long time, 25 years, starting with, hacking into domains through cable modems. Probably call me a script kiddie. I went down to Atlanta with ISS, if you guys remember that organization, Internet Security Systems, kind of the original IDS. Breaking into websites, web services. I mean, it was crazy back then. And really, I think cyber has kind of, evolved over time. Nothing major, but over 25 years, there's certainly been a number of changes within the industry. So a little bit about kind of where we fit within the MNP ecosystem. So I am part of the cybersecurity and privacy team. I think there's 6 partners, across the firm that provide various services, and we'll go into that in a second. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is demonstrating stuff that you'll see in headlines to executives in organizations. So kind of pre-incident response, right? I guess everyone knows it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But pre-incident response, when I get brought in to talk to executives and senior leaders, my role is to really hit home some of the stuff that they're reading in the headlines. So I know you guys are all familiar with social engineering. I just thought I would show a couple of examples of stuff that we've done over the years. So this was a training program that we did for Manitoba Métis Federation. And so one of the concepts of social engineering is this old attack called tab nabbing. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but you're all familiar with tabs right across the browser. We're opening up multiple websites here. We'll check on the world's greatest hockey team. So, yes, you can post your comments later. So what I did when we merged in with M&P, I basically just screen scraped the corporate website, threw it on my personal domain. If you read the press release, you can Google it later if you're so inclined. If you actually pay attention to kind of that tab just to the left, you'll see that while you're busy, you're reading the news press release or the recipe or whatever the latest news is, the tab in the background changes, right? So you can have it set to your type of login. And if you're not paying attention, right, the end user would certainly submit their credentials, submit them to the nefarious website, and off you go. So that's just one example of what we'll demonstrate for executives to try to kind of hit the message home about it's not just the fake Amazon email that you need to be concerned about. Same thing with the gummy bear attack, right, for biometrics. So what we did here was we did the proof of concept where we took lifted a fingerprint, used it to bypass the biometric of the phone, right? So I know we all read about it and talk about it, but until the executives actually see it, sometimes it's kind of hard to hit home. And then more recently, we're talking about MFA bypass attacks. I think this is a fairly technical group. I hope so anyway. So I'm sure you've read all about it. But again, just a quick little example. Phishing link goes in. And if malicious domain that we've registered called officeportals.ca. So if you get a survey from officeportals.ca, probably don't submit that today. But as an end user, right, you submit your Active Directory credentials. And again, we're using kind of that man-in-the-middle MFA attack. It'll do the prompt for the MFA token code, right? So this can either be SMS or a authenticator app, type in the 6-digit code. And because we're going through that man-in-the-middle proxy, the attacker has full access to that user's mailbox, SharePoint, OneDrive for that specific session, right? So outside of just the headlines, this is kind of really what gets me out of bed in the morning, is to demonstrate stuff like this to our clients. So once an organization has an incident, right, we're going to try to define, with Ryan's help, the differences between digital forensics and incident response and the different responsibilities that each group has. Well, on that note, Ryan, I'll pass it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Eugene. So just a little bit of definition, and I'm sure a lot of people in the room somewhat know this, but there is some slight differences between DF and IR, right? We do hear them combined a lot of times, specifically for, responses, breach responses and whatnot, but there is digital forensics on its own. So digital forensics basically is the collection, preservation, processing, and analysis of forensic evidence, or digital forensic evidence, right? And that can be on sort of any device. From a litigation digital forensic perspective to a breach response digital forensics perspective, that can be a little bit different, what we're actually looking at. And then, the reconstruction of a cyber incident or an event from that digital evidence. And this can exist without a cyber incident. I did mention litigation. A lot of the work that my team does is litigation support and not cyber incident, reporting. And then digital forensics traditionally focuses on and leverages, methodologies that are known in law enforcement and elsewhere, and common tools that are used across as well. Then a cyber incident response is normally containing, stopping, and preventing some sort of cyber attack or incident or damages from occurring. And this is definitely responding to a cyber incident. The incident response team do leverage practices of digital forensics to achieve their goals, and that can sometimes be the preservation of evidence or log files and different methodologies and whatnot. But, we do see these combined together often, but there also is a DF component separately on its own.
And, when we talk about the differences between incident response and digital forensics, so this is, it's an eye chart, but at the end of the day, this is kind of where we see the overlap between our incident management teams and digital forensics. So if we take a look at the incident management, this is the team that Sam leads here. So it's incident response program, development, assessment, testing, tabletop exercises, primarily looking at logging and detection solutions, right, to try to identify the source of the attack or the threat actor. We talked about the response plan development, the TTXs. This is also the retainer-based service, right, the 24/7, so you pick up the phone to make the call, as well as threat hunting and investigation services. And I'll pass it over to Ryan again, just to outline the differences with the forensic services. And again, we're going to have a little bit of a quiz with the case studies on who you're going to call for the next few, so pay attention.
Yeah. So I fall under, unlike Eugene, who is under the cyber practice, I fall under our forensic services. We currently have 9 partners for forensics, most of whom do forensic accounting and whatnot. I lead the digital forensic practice as part of that forensic services. So most of what we do is litigation support. The way that we divide things up a little bit differently here at M&P is, as Eugene mentioned, Sam and team and Chris and others run the cyber component of the DFIR, whereas my team does more the digital investigation component. We do a bit of a Venn diagram and overlap a little bit, but as you can see on the screen, there's a lot of other aspects within the forensic services that we help out with as well, especially employee investigations, and we're going to get into that a little bit later, fraud prevention and some other aspects as well. And again, this is a lot on the screen, so I won't go over it all.
This one's yours. Brian.
Perfect. So from a categories of security incidents, so today, like I mentioned, most of what I'm dealing with is litigation, but today we're talking about incidents and cyber incidents. So most of what we're doing or looking into from a security incident perspective, malicious code attacks, unauthorized access to IT or information assets, unauthorized changes to systems, networks, devices, or information, DDoS attacks, misuse of IT or information assets, policy infringement, surveillance and espionage, and social engineering. The way that we divide this up, you can see on the right-hand side there, the way that we divide this up here at MNP is if there is a sort of a known party that might go to litigation, that's normally my team that jumps in, from an expert reporting and expert testimony type perspective, whereas the IR team, if it's an unknown party, you're talking about your ransomwares, your business email compromise, and other breaches, unknown parties, that's where the incident response team jumps in. On the right-hand side there, you can see that Venn diagram, right? So the digital forensics team and the incident response team, and in the middle is definitely that investigative component. Right? From an incident response perspective, if they're going in for a breach, they're definitely doing an investigation. What happened and how did the attackers get in? What did they look at? What did they take? And all that sort of component. And oftentimes for their investigations, they're kind of working backwards, right? Which is kind of interesting. From the digital forensics straight perspective, more litigation forensics, we are definitely doing an investigation as well, but we're more answering questions that the client may have. We might not be working backwards from the evidence that we see. So oftentimes we're working forward. So a little bit different, but definitely a lot of shared skills and methodologies and tools that sit in that middle component.
Thanks, Mike.
And I think this is mine as well. So from an incident response perspective, here's some of the priorities that we have. So definitely determining the impact and urgency. A lot of times our clients, they get hit with these incidents, and from what I've heard from a lot of them, it's the worst thing a CEO has ever dealt with, right? A ransomware or whatnot. So what is the urgency here? What do we have to look at first? What evidence do we have to triage? Removing false positives. And the priority of the business impact. That's definitely what we want to make sure our clients get up to speed and get up to operations very, very quickly. We need to stop the bleeding, right, and the damage that is going on. And if there's still any attackers in the system, obviously get them out and stop the bleeding and get operations up to running. Preserving the evidence is truly important. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about when to call us to do that and how it's important because, as you know, digital evidence can be destroyed or manipulated very, very quickly. And then initiate that communication, right, between the key stakeholders in this operation and other people involved. If the organizations have an incident response plan, who is on that, right? Is there external legal? Is there DFIR teams involved? And I'll tell you a funny story that we had. We had a large client get hit with a ransomware some time ago, and their emails were obviously shut down. They couldn't communicate with each other. So somebody on their team told all the CEOs and C-suite, just go and find email addresses you can use. So they were all going off and getting Hotmail and Gmail and all these addresses that they can use, but they didn't want to use their real names. So a lot of them, somebody said, just use movie names or something. And then we started getting communication from like Tony Soprano at gmail.com, and all these people were emailing us, and we had no clue who we're talking to. So we actually had to create an Excel spreadsheet. The CFO is Tony Soprano, and the CEO is, this person. And it really slowed things down. So it's really vitally important, for an incident response plan to have alternative forms of communication baked into that. So if you do have an incident, you just flip over to that alternative, communications, and off you go.
Great, thanks, Ryan. Okay, case study number 1. I don't even remember which case study it is, but we'll go. Oh yeah, this one. Okay, so I get an email. This is actually a real email thread that I pulled from 2019. We have a doctor who's convinced that he's been hacked and stopped using his phone. He also suspects his email accounts have been compromised. Who do you call?
Incident response. Incident response team.
Incident response team? Yeah. Why? Why would you call them first?
Because he helped to correct payments and the incident.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? We call digital forensics first on this one.
You have to like investigate on the part, like look for the signs, like what are the things that has been compromised in his phone.
Right.
The phone is like hacked. Then he has to look for the emails, like whatever the emails might be the one that leads to the like compromise. So he has to look that. Then in that case, how they can handle the incident, then it will hand out to the incident response team.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll let the secret out of the bag now, but you're right. There is never kind of one clear answer. However, I think in this case, you're right. We did do it from IR perspective, and then we did bring in digital forensics after the fact to analyze the phone to see if anything was going on there. So, okay, terrific. Any other comments on the first case study? Hopefully it's none of your doctors. Right. Case study number 2. I'll just go through kind of a quick little timeline event. This is an actual event that occurred. We talk a lot about dwell time these days, right? It used to be over a year, right? Threat actors could be in a network and then you'd be like, well, how come you haven't been able to see them? Now we're seeing that dwell time shortened down. This one actually happened kind of right in the middle of COVID. So we have a VPN connection at 5:10 using a third-party developer account that was not secured using MFA. Of course, some reconnaissance activities on December the 12th. We had SOC alerts and events go through for a couple of NDR events. Unfortunately, it was on the weekend, and the organization didn't process alerts and events on the weekend. On December the 12th, around 8:30, logged back in, did some more lateral movement, elevation of privileges, and then around 1:45, the ransomware attack actually started. So, in this ransomware event, who are you going to call? Who's the first call? Yes.
I would like to call the incident response because it is still ransomware, and first of all, we should stop leading and then mitigating. But of course, we will ask the digital forensic because I think it is the CM cached some headers, and so we saw they try to target the keys, and the digital forensic needs to look. Maybe they can use the already known some methods.
Yes, for sure. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, like that's something like you can like start with the incident response team. Like you can monitor the like ransomware. They can do like whatever the data they might exfiltrate from your the traffic, ongoing traffic incoming. So that it will look for this using the incident response team. Then you will have to hand out to the digital forensic team to find out what are the characteristics of the ransomware. If you can like decrypt it or using the digital forensics idea.
Yeah. The ability to decrypt data. I know there's keys out there. I've never come across a case where any of those keys have worked. Maybe you folks have, but I don't know. I think that's a misnomer. Yeah, it's worked for you?
No. So what I was saying is, I think like first response has to be to contain the incident, right? Contain the damage. So I think the incident response team is kind of well equipped to understand whether there's a real issue and how to contain and mitigate any future escalation. And because they would eventually find out that there has been something which is going on suspicious, and then eventually digital forensics will be the both people to kind of identify the threat. That's my understanding.
Yeah, it's kind of like a step 2, right? Like investigation. Although the last case study that I think we'll go through here, because I know we're running short of time. So this is actually a real case study as well, one that Ryan and I are working on. I will let you read it. One may not be easy. Personally, I think the flowers is a nice touch, but it was a real call that we received. Who would lead this investigation? Not you, Imran.
Police.
Police.
Police. Yeah. Police work. It's Brian. Police work. Yeah.
Send it to the police.
Yeah, police are involved.
Definitely.
Okay. Yes.
I prefer with starting with that. I mean, digital forensic, because the personal information, it is how they got it, PII, or what kind of the information are using, and also the flowers. There is like they are accessing the data in the rest, and so we should understand how they are getting to this information, and then what we find it, and we can update the playbook, and so these countries they can get this.
Yeah, this one was an interesting one because, again, it was a digital forensics led investigation because of the fact, number one, it was an insider, right? Number two, there was the potential of it having legal implications. The tricky part is they weren't sure if the access to the information was done like through a vulnerability in an application internally, or if it was just they had access and they misused that potential access. Anything else, Ryan? I'm trying to remember. You guys led most of this, right? So I'm trying to remember what else you guys.
Yeah, no, I think that's about it. And the only other thing was the tracking devices. So we did a bug sweep on the vehicles and rooms and whatnot.
Right. Forgot about the bugs.
The bugs were hidden.
Yes. Anyways, people will never cease to amaze me. All right. So I know we're kind of coming up to time. So Ryan, I think you just wanted to finish off a little bit here on when to engage with the app.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned this before, the preservation of evidence and when to involve us and call us. Basically, as soon as it becomes clear that there's any digital evidence going to be involved, it's best to have a conversation with somebody for a variety of different reasons. To determine if it's a device that we can actually handle, that we can actually get information off of. With IoT and a bunch of unusual devices nowadays, it might not be the device that the information is contained on. It might be an application that's on your phone, right, that we're getting things from. So we really have to determine there. To suggest other potential sources of data, right? If somebody has a phone, for example, and we don't have the PIN or the passwords for it, but they have a cloud backup, we can go there and we can get information from there. To provide guidance on how to seize the devices, that's very important as well. And also, to make sure that other people aren't tromping through the evidence. We are working on another case right now where we went in and did a whole bunch of work, and we were able to determine that somebody was remote accessing and doing a whole bunch of things using, I think, TeamViewer or another application. And then we had a conversation with a client, and they said, oh, that was our IT guys. We told them to go into this person's computer and turn off applications and delete things. So basically, the IT people were in there doing an investigation, deleting evidence as they were going through stuff. So it's best to call us in right away just to make sure that nobody's going to ruin evidence.
Perfect. All right. And I know we have some questions. That's all we had prepared. I don't know. Yes, Carol.
There's actually a number of questions online, and we can take one in person as well.
Sure.
So I'll start with the one online that's the most voted. How would a small organization with zero security appetite carry out a digital forensics for SOC 2 certificate requirement and audit?
That's a lot to unpack. SOC 2 really doesn't have anything to do with digital forensics. That's more of a certification for process and security. I mean, there's privacy, there's different domains that you can certify on. It's typically used for like third-party vendor management, right? So if you're hiring a company to host your CRM, you want to make sure they're SOC 2 compliant, right? So it's a certification and compliance process. Digital forensics is not really involved in that.
Okay, so I will move on to another question online then. How do you see the development and growth of computer forensics within the next year?
Oh, that's a good question for Ryan. And sorry, before Ryan answers that, MNP does SOC 2 validation. Okay, go ahead, Ryan.
Perfect. Yeah, great question. So how do we see it evolving? We see it growing. The more and more digital devices out there and the more data that we are all using, people are taking data back and forth. There's more breaches, as we know, and business email compromise and aspects. So it is growing tremendously. And with the use of AI, it's actually becoming easier for attackers to do what they do. And it's going to impact what we do as well, right? Looking through all that data, trying to piece through it, we're going to start using more and more AI to do analysis of all the data, e-discovery, and all that sort of aspect as well. So AI is going to be used on both sides.
And also on the tooling, Brian, I know we didn't really talk too much about that, but you guys are always bragging about your fancy tools. You want to spend just a couple minutes on where you kind of think that's headed? Because it's changed a lot, right, since I used to mirror drives.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, there are tools out there now that are deep level mobile forensics, VeriKey and others. VeriKey does have GrayKey, which does allow law enforcement to, break through the password of a phone. They don't allow, us to have access to those. But there are, as phones and as devices, evolve and get more security features on them, the tools that we keep using have to get more and more, sophisticated as well. So it's no longer, right, you can just have one digital forensic tool and it's used for everything. You now have specific tools to look at different devices.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you. Do we have a question from the audience?
So I actually have a question regarding forensics. And what I understand is, so digital forensics as of now is kind of under-penetrated on the personal front. So we have a lot of people who face scams, and the accountability is not fixed. And what I understand is forensic auditing is a big part of accountability. But I think there is a loophole or a gap in terms of ensuring that accountability on a cross-border level, and that has to come from a regulatory side. So, do you think in future that is going to evolve so that this accountability can be fixed and that forensics can kind of be a solution to them as well in terms of legal solutions?
That would be a great question to throw out to everybody on a vote, to be honest. Because, I have my opinion, but I'd be really interested to hear what other people say. I know, if I think about priorities, though, so I'm part of the e-crimes committee. I forget the acronym. It's essentially a public-private partnership between law enforcement and private organizations. The fact that we don't even have, and we're just rolling out now, a single reporting portal for individuals and organizations, it's embarrassing. It's 2024, and we still don't have a single source of reporting capability. So for me, we need to clean up our stuff first before we can even think about having more kind of international partnerships and cooperation. This is my personal opinion.
And that's a great question as well. I don't know if he's in the room yet, but Imran is obviously a specialist on cross-border aspects, so that might be a great question for him on the next panel.
How'd you know he's here? Just his aura?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Imran could share too. I didn't share the other social engineering thing that we used to do. I'll play that one. That's a great one. No, I'll save it for the panel. It's all good. Okay, Carolyn, anything?
That's it.
We're good. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, and we'll pass it over to Raphael.
Bye, folks. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in 15 minutes.
Thanks to MMP for having us here. My name is Olushola Adele. Everybody calls me Shola, so Shola is fine. I will not be doing their introductions. They will all introduce themselves, if you don't mind. But I will introduce myself. Olushola Adele. I am the Director of Academic Partnerships here at ISC2 Toronto chapter. And when I'm not doing that, I am the Director of Cybersecurity with a company called Egite Association. So we'll just go this way.
Should have sat on the end.
Okay.
Smart. So first of all, thank you for having me. And then for hosting this. It's great venue and great turnout. So my name is Imran Ahmad. I'm a lawyer by trade. I'm a partner at the law firm Norton Rose Fulbright, primarily based here in Toronto, although I do spend quite a bit of time in Montreal, which is my hometown. That's why when Eugene was speaking, he had the Montreal Canadiens reference. It connected, although the team is doing very well. So a lot of the things I do, my background is more in technology, specifically in contracting and technology work. But 12 years ago, I started getting more into cybersecurity work. And so it has grown since then. So we do a lot of breach response, a lot of the IR work that we just talked about, and a lot of the pre-breach planning preparation from a legal governance standpoint. So that's what my background.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Monica Tamper. I am the AVP of Application Security at Manulife. From schooling, I am a computer engineer. I'm a PN. I've been in the industry. I see some strong hands. There's a very strong engineering community. You know, the ring, you can go anywhere in the world and I'll see somebody on the street and be like, oh, you're from Canada, you got your ring. So yeah, I get it. I switched to cybersecurity after about 10 years in engineering, and I'll talk a bit more about, what that transition was like. And I recently, in the last 5 years during COVID, got a master's in risk management and business performance because I felt like I'm very technical background, but just wanted to, have more of a business acumen. I love doing stuff like this. I think community engagement is awesome. It's nice to meet people. It's nice to share our experiences and learn from each other. Outside of work, I have 3 children, so it's really helpful. I love cybersecurity and engineering, and my job allows me to marry both of those and bring those skills together.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Laskowski. I am a program manager, talent enablement of cyber innovation with CIBC. So my role primarily is to manage a number of rotational programs we have for new grads, breaking into the cybersecurity industry, as well as manage a number of other strategic workforce planning and upskilling initiatives within our cybersecurity team. My background primarily is in human resources, and I switched over to cybersecurity about 7 years ago, doing a lot of HR consulting within cyber teams, and then finally joining an innovation team where we try to innovate through innovation programs to really try to build great teams. So I appreciate that.
Awesome. Lovely to meet you all. Snigdha Kaushik. I'm a senior manager here at MNP, part of the privacy and data protection practice. My background is cybersecurity. I've been in this industry for over 13 years now and really started my career with from the industry, very hands-on the keyboard, a lot of technical work, and then just kind of built my career more and pivoted to more strategic side. And looking forward to our knowing about our panelists more and our discussion this afternoon.
Great, lovely. Thank you all for that. I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, we're talking about building brands, and here I am. I look probably nothing like a cybersecurity professional. I have my motorcycle boots on. I have my hat on, but you can see so that's the responsible me over there. We'll just start off with something light, and we'll ask what initially drew you to cybersecurity, and how did you begin building your brand?
Yeah, me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so as we were preparing for this session, I did say in the prep call, look, it's dangerous to give lawyer too much time because I can go on and on and on. I'll try to be very, very brief.
I'll tap you.
Yeah, tap me or pull me aside. I'll try to be brief. It's actually a very interesting story how I got it. It was completely by chance. There was no logic to me wanting to go into cyber or trying to get into cybersecurity. So I take you back about 14, 13 years or so. Law firms generally are slow to adopt new technologies, and they're also a bit slow in some respects of seeing new trend lines. So cyber was not even a practice area in a law firm before. And I was a senior associate at the time. I did technology work, and the firm I worked at the time did a lot of franchise work. And so when a company wants to set up a franchise in Canada, you set up a corporate location, and then you have franchisees who look at that corporate model and try to replicate it in other parts of the country. So we had one client who I had been working on technology agreements with for a while who was coming into Canada, so a big move for them, expanding into the Canadian marketplace, and had been working with them for several months. And then one day I get a phone call from them, a bit panicked, and this is an American company, saying, Imran, we have a cybersecurity incident. I go, okay, it's like security and something with the digital here, so here it is, but like, what's going on? They said, well, we have credit cards. So when people come to our location for this corporate spot that we have opened up, there's credit card information that we accidentally disclosed, was made available and publicly visible to pretty much anyone. And by the way, one of those individuals is a reporter for a large newspaper in the GTA here. And so we have to notify, like, what should we be doing? What is our legal requirement to notify people? What regulators do we need to call? Do we need to do anything publicly, like credit monitoring? And a lot of this now seems very obvious to us. But 13, 14 years ago, there was no set playbook for Canada at the time. And our laws were sort of slowly adapting. The Americans were ahead of the curve because they're more of a litigation background as to how they developed their laws. So we got a group of people together, worked through the process for the client. It was very intense for about 4 days. After that, it slowed down a bit. It was adrenaline rush, really interesting. And so I went to our managing partner at the time, and I said, hey, you know what? I think we should start a practice area in this area that's called cybersecurity. He goes, that's interesting. Why don't you go around, talk to some of the partners, see if anybody's interested to sort of lead this. You're still a senior associate, you're not a partner yet. And I got everything. They go, I don't think cybersecurity is a thing. One partner told me. Another one said to me, it's like Y2K is going to disappear after a few years. One person thought it was like libel and defamation. He goes, I'm not sure we want to do that work. I got all kinds of rejection. So I went back to the managing partner and I said, look, no one's interested. What do we do? But I still think this is valuable. Why don't you build this out on your own? Good luck. You have no budget. You have to keep your billable hours up on your own. So let us know how it goes. That was 13, 14 years ago. Very shortly after that, you had Home Depot, Target, and Sony that had very public breaches where people lost their jobs. Like people were hauled in front of Congress, they had to resign or were fired. And immediately it was like a light switch that went up in Canada where large enterprise clients were saying, hold on, there's real risk here. Like we could lose our jobs. So the boards were asking questions. So we went from a one-person practitioner who could barely make hours with cyber alone, that was many years ago, to a large practice. And we're not the only law firm. There's a lot of law firms that do this work. But, you know, we have 28 lawyers who do this now, full-time, not as a pastime. So it's incredible in terms of growth. So that's how I got into it, only by chance, but it has grown over time.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, very similar to you, Imran. For me, it was by chance too. So I was in engineering. I graduated with a lot of like love for engineering, and like, you know, I could envision my career, you know, I'm going to become a principal engineer and, you know, the path. But I started to hit a ceiling, and we'll talk about this a little bit later as well, where it was 22 years ago, it was very male dominated, and I don't know, I just wasn't moving up in the career ladder, and I couldn't figure out what was happening because I was like a really good student when I graduated, and in school, it's, you know, your effort is directly proportionate to the result you get. But in the work world, I felt like I just didn't understand. Like I was playing a game, but like nobody really told me the rules. So I would work really hard, but I was not getting ahead. So just, I had a really frustrating year-end performance where I was like, this year, you know what, I'm going to get the exceeds, and it didn't happen. After that, I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go with the flow. Just forget this like vision that I have for myself. And I was at some networking event. I worked at Rogers at the time, and there was a director who just by chance was sitting on my table. And she's like, oh, I have an opening in cybersecurity. You know, Monica, like, you'd be really good. And before I would have never considered that. I was just like, you know, very tunnel vision. And then I was like, you know what, I got nothing to lose. So I applied for the role, she hired me, and they were looking for somebody who had technical expertise and to secure the network. So it's just by chance that I kind of just suspended all of my thinking, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go with it. And from that, I think it has been a very exciting career, because I did not plan it. I did not like go and seek it out. And there I was an advisor. Then I kid you guys not, the first time I was hired into like a governance role. I had to go back to my desk and actually Google governance, because like, okay, I know what government is, but what is security governance? So it was like that level of rudimentary, like I had no knowledge, but it's just using those transferable skills. And then to talk about building a brand. Again, back then, people would say elevator pitch and build a brand. I didn't really consciously put any effort into it. I feel like it just happened over time through volunteering, networking, and doing good work. Like I just always focus on trying to be good at what I do. And I think that in the end has really led me to where I am.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, for me, I started working at a small startup that did vulnerability assessments and pen testing for Fortune 500 clients. Had a chance to really hang out with a lot of the ethical hackers. Got a chance to see kind of what they do hands-on. I was a little horrified and a little excited at the same time, but yeah, just having a chance to work with some of the practice leads, hearing a lot of the client calls, seeing what challenges organizations have, and really hearing it from kind of that leadership level. It really kind of opened my eyes to what's out there, what are the challenges that organizations face, and since then I've just been really excited to be able to be a part of it in some way, shape, or form. Cybersecurity, like every other industry, has people. People work together. There's teams, so there's a lot there for business professionals and people outside of cyber to really engage on and help out with. But yeah, I would say just having a chance to kind of see pen testing and some of the tools that kind of drew me in. So since then, I've been kind of hooked, I would say.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, my story is not as cool as some of you guys, but I didn't have any interest in computers at all. Up until really my story is more around taking leap of faith and taking risks and, just putting my hand up. High school, up until closer to grade 12, I was, I want to get into biotech. I focused all my courses, sciences, took everything. The closer I got to graduation, the less and less interested I got. So I found myself at a point where, hey, I needed to make alternate plans. So I decided, hey, I'll, try computer programming, and more so because it's challenging. I did that for a year and definitely found it was very challenging. Got a lot of respect for programmers out there, but again, found myself in a place where, I had to decide again, what's next for me. I realized I like, critical thinking, solving problems. And coincidentally, at that point, my school was also just introducing a new cybersecurity program. And that's when I decided to kind of, shift gears. And here I am, well, 14 years later, just still working in the cyber field.
Awesome. Thank you. I guess I should try and answer that question as well. But mine is not, it wasn't anything serious. And just to let you know, not everybody in cyber is that serious. Some of us are just goofballs, right? I had no idea. I studied computer science in school, and then I saw someone with a free in a cybersecurity book. I looked at it, and that was it. Okay. I have a question here, just real quick. And this is good because the topic is good because it cuts across different levels of people in cybersecurity, right? If you're in the entry level or you're transiting to cybersecurity, and we have a lot of people who are doing that now, legal professionals, nurses, doctors, engineers. So, okay, in the room, is there anyone who's like new to cyber, just a couple of years? Can you just raise your hand up? Okay, that's group one. And anybody who's like, you consider yourself experienced, like a grandmaster of So one, you need to identify the group. Two, then network with them and add them on LinkedIn. So real quick, the next question is, what strategies have you employed to increase your visibility in the cybersecurity community? Let me later.
Okay, I'll start.
Yeah.
So some strategies that have worked for me, again, networking, and here all of us are here for networking. So just meeting new people. Someone very smart and very rich said, your network is your network. Try saying that 5 times really quickly. It's all about, the people you surround yourself with. Your network absolutely is a great avenue that, helps you open doors and opportunities, not just in your personal journey, but your professional journey as well. I've met some really amazing people throughout my career where, they've not only opened doors just at a professional level, but also at a personal level as well. I've had great mentors. People have given me great advice. Some of the other things that have worked for me, and as an alumni, I'm a strong believer of staying close to your school events. Even in organizations, some of them offer alumni programs where, they host events. Go meet people. A lot of the times you'll notice, sometimes your friends will eventually become your clients. So it's always good to be close to some of these people. But one thing, if you're are anything like me, and people who do know me, some of you might know that I don't love being in front of people and talking in front of people. It's definitely not my forte, but I like to take risks. So I put my hand up and, I find myself in these positions where, half an hour before a conference or before a session, I'm like, there's butterflies, there's nervous, I want to, I feel nauseous, but hey, it's all about, putting yourself out there, taking risks, making sure that, you're actively participating in the community, whether that's through events, through conferences, or even like online discussions.
All right, thank you. Steve, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, I think just having a natural curiosity to see how things work and working on what. I got into cybersecurity simply because I looked over at my colleague's screen and said, "What's that?" So being able to just kind of take an interest into what other people are working on and what other people are doing, even if it's not in your area or in your domain. I find at least that at my employer, everyone is open to having a few-minute conversation just to say what they're working on, what's happening, especially if you take an interest. So I find that the more you can kind of get out there, figure out who's working on what, see what's happening, you can kind of align that to your interests. And then from there, you can start, taking actions to get involved in different areas that are of interest to you.
Great. All right. I'll just take another question. So Monica, what are some of the challenges you faced while building your brand?
I mentioned one of them, that when I started, I was in engineering, and I think we've come a long way in terms of diversity, inclusion, and equity. When I started and graduated from university in engineering, I think it might still be, if I felt like in engineering it was predominantly male dominated, and there was not too much upward movement, and there's a lot of unconscious and conscious biases. So I felt like overcoming some of those it's challenging. And I think even now, if we're all honest, we do a lot of work. I think diversity and inclusion, equity has come to the forefront, but if you look at organizations, the higher up you go, yes, you'll see a lot of diversity at the bottom, but we still have work to do. So how did I overcome that? You could feel it. You can feel sometimes that I think, and I won't just say it's women, I think it's a lot of different diversity of thought. I used to, in engineering, I was women in science and engineering, and for the first 10 years, it was just promoting women. But over time, I think it's become more than that. It's diversity of thought, diversity of experience. So I think that just opening ourselves up and being more empathetic, learning, and also I knew that sometimes you can't really fight the system. So I tried to work on networking. I tried to make sure I was good at what I am doing. And that's one thing I have learned is that you can't be impatient with building a career. Even when I switched from engineering to cybersecurity, it's something new. And even though I'm a very technical person, I did not know the domains of security. So to Ralph's point about ISC clearance, I did a lot of search. So knowing what kind of learner are you, what your strengths are. So I knew I'm really good at a book type of studying, and because I was really, some people like hands-on knowledge. So I actually ended up doing a lot of search. I first got my CSSP, then I got the CCSP, then I got CSM, but it was really about how do I better myself. So when I speak, people listen. I have the knowledge. So I would say that's something that's really helped. And even when I was doing some of the certs, there were a lot of study groups. So, I ended up meeting a lot of people that were also in the same boat as me, and they were trying to either transition or they were new. And I know like U of T now offers courses and stuff like that. So you can also use that as a leverage to, when you're new in a career, you could, if you're into sort of the book, writing those exams and stuff. And it was stressful. I had three kids, so it was not an easy thing to do. But I found that was a way, like surprisingly, that was a way to build a community that you wouldn't really think about.
So that's great. Okay. Do you want to take that question as well?
Well, described to you is going to sound funny, but it actually wasn't. So when you go back 14 years, so I'm 47 years old. At the time, I would have been in my early 30s, right? 33, 34. And cyber was not really a thing. But when it did happen, imagine going in front of a client who is probably in their 50s or 60s, a board that's very gray-haired, and a 30-year-old something comes in, I'm the expert, I can tell you what to do. And I wasn't taken very seriously. It's like, you don't look the age, you don't look the role of what a legal advisor should be for this area. Although I knew I probably couldn't add value here. So I grew a beard. I started teaching to sound more serious. But
that's bias, right?
Yeah. But jokes aside, very similar to what Monica mentioned, we have, my wife and I, 3 kids. At the time, it was 3 kids under the age of 3. My wife works full time, so it was like she was stay at home and I could go do what I wanted to do. I had, evenings were hard to get out. I started my day early, so I wasn't the guy who was going to schmooze with clients, take them out for dinners, but I was the guy who would be a thought leader, share like this community, what we had in terms of information. I write a lot of articles, I present, I talk to people with diverse perspectives. It's one thing to be a lawyer, but it's better to be a lawyer who knows what cybersecurity is from a forensic standpoint, or, applications or grants negotiation and board advisory and other issues. It gives you a more holistic approach to things. And I think now, because we have so many people, just in this room, the grandmasters, like you said, there were none of those before. And the community was really small, so I'm very happy to see it's grown so much. But that was a challenge. And everybody, and so the younger lawyers in our group, they go, what should I be doing for my brand? Should I be writing a ton of articles? I go, you could. It depends what your comfort level is. Some people are good at networking. Some people are more shy, which I put myself in that category, oddly enough. Some people don't have a lot of time with kids and family and, the sandwich generation. So pick your own style and then stick with it. And I'll tell one story. I know I'm going long, okay? So my first few years, I hated being a lawyer. I would go with these senior lawyers, and they would always be super eloquent, and henceforth we shall, I don't talks like that at all. And I tried to emulate them, right? Talk a certain way, be a certain way, and it felt fake. So at one point I said to my wife, I go, if it works out, great, but I'm just going to be myself. If it doesn't work out, I may be looking for a new job. And I just started talking to people the way you would talk to a friend. And honestly, that has been the best thing that ever happened in my life. When you talk to a client about their issue, you're not going to talk lawyerly. I mean, there'll still be legal issues, but you talk to them like a person, and they'll talk to you that way. And it has opened up so many great doors in terms of being relatable to clients and clients being relatable to us.
Thank you. So I guess it's clear that from their challenges, they, I think Oprah Winfrey says, turn your wounds into wisdom. You learn from those challenges and you become better, you grow. So, next question. Are there key skills cybersecurity professionals should focus on to grow their brand? Is this open? Anyone want to take it? Okay.
Yeah, so I think that aside from technical skills, more and more, it's becoming increasingly important to have good presentation skills. I think that being able to present your ideas and communicate your ideas effectively is super important, especially as folks get into those senior roles. You start to see a lot more accountability and a lot more activities that are outside of cyber, right? So whether that's team building, team management, whatever it is, there's just lots of different activities that come with it. So just trying to get out of the, I guess, technical sphere and trying to get some soft skills, I think comes with seniority as well. So yeah, I would say soft skills, communications, presentation skills, being able to get your ideas down on paper. But also increasingly, I think, with AI coming out and all the awesome tools that we're starting to see, I think at least at our workplace, we're starting to see a pretty big digital transformation, more so than what we had in the past. With like Microsoft Copilot and all these things just on the cusp. I think having those digital skills is super important as well. So being able to, work with Copilot or understanding what ChatGPT is, how to leverage that in the future, those are going to be really important skills. And yeah, they'll make folks more productive. Having those skills, I think, would be really good.
I can answer that. I think, to your point, I think being a lifelong learner, because it's such a dynamic field. So we have to continuously evolve because the threats are continuously evolving. Threat landscape every 5 years it feels like it's a new trend. First it's like cloud transformation, and now it's like AI, and then it's going to be something else, quantum. You know what I mean? So you got to be ready to be continuously learning. And I do feel like all skills are welcome. I do think that just to Imran's point, you have to be true to who you are, and I feel like it took me a long time to realize that. So I don't know if it comes with experience, but it's okay if you're, a geek. And I say that with the best intention because I was kind of like that. But, it's okay if you want to be the ethical hacker and you just want to be a pen tester. And it's okay if you're not technical, but you have awesome communication skills. And you just find that the role that fits you. Maybe you need to be in the awareness team where you're going and socializing something. And maybe you have really good analytical and problem-solving skills, and you should be in the forensic investigation team. So I do think cybersecurity is so vast that all skills are welcome, and it's just about finding what you're passionate about. Because if you're doing something that you're really enjoying, you're going to be good at it. So
I'll add another one. It's the ability to be able to translate into plain speak. Senior executives, decision makers. So on an incident response, we'll be on calls with clients, a lot of the forensic team, very technical discussions, very helpful in some respects. And the best project managers are the ones who then relay that back up to leadership or to the board, say, here's what's really happening. Not the technical piece, but big picture, here's the decision we need you to make or that you should be considering. That is a skill. To take that much information that's coming at you, which is often very technical, and making it very simple for the decision maker who has no background in the area, who is a bit panicking, playing a bit of a psychologist and coach at the same time. And it's not for lawyers only, it's for like anyone, like a CISO or CIO or anybody else who's managing the cyber portfolio.
Yeah, really important, especially in leadership roles. So you could have really technical people, but you got to be the translator. Take that, and based on your audience, you have to kind of be able to make it relatable to what they care about, right?
Okay. All right, I have a question here about online presence. I was hoping Eugene would still be here because he said his LinkedIn had been still for God knows how long. So this one says, could you discuss the importance of maintaining a professional online presence? Linda.
Sure. And maybe I'll take that question on one step further. So, of course, it is about maintaining an online presence, but it's about building first a positive presence, and of course, then, continuing to evolve it and maintain it. A lot of the times we see LinkedIn being, and I'll be that person in the room to say this, LinkedIn being used as, some posts being posted, when you see Facebook or that should be on Instagram. But really it's all about, building an online, like a positive image that reflects your work ethic, your values and your expertise, because really this is what is going to set you apart, but also help you connect with like-minded people and people who might potentially be your future, colleagues or clients and even employers.
What else want to say?
Yeah, I think we have to be careful what we say. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I find that the more senior folks get, the less they are on LinkedIn almost. But one thing I can just add to this is I do enjoy reading content that my peers post and put together. So if folks put together like research papers or just like opinion pieces or something like that, I enjoy things like that just to kind of see where folks are at and what their thoughts are. So I mean, if folks have time and are able to do that, I enjoy those pieces from my colleagues. So,
okay. All right. I think this will probably be our last question as we're almost out of time. What is one piece of advice you wish you had received about building your brand when you started your career?
Cycle a little bit of what I said, but I think, if you look at LinkedIn, I'm just going to use the example of LinkedIn or maybe X. It is a reflection of your personality and who you are. Yeah. So don't be shy to sort of express yourself authentically. Obviously within limits. Don't go and start commenting or thinking. I mean, there's more value in sharing and adding value to conversations that are incrementally helpful, as opposed to disagreeing and getting into back and forth with people. I think having your own imprint and a reflection, extension of your personality is something super helpful.
What I would tell my younger self, is that the question about, I wish I had started earlier. I think for the first 10 years of when I was in engineering, I don't think I networked that much. I wasn't really volunteering. I think it took me a while to realize what I really enjoy doing. So do what you love. And I just started volunteering, and that kind of led to a lot of networking. And now I think the generation, I see a lot of fresh grads even that, are already part of mentorship. You should get some mentorship if you can. Go and build your brand and be consciously doing it, like that to whatever it is, the elevator pitch and all that stuff. I feel like I learned that way later in my career, but yeah, start sooner rather than later.
I would say advice for myself would just be to be fearless, go out there and start following areas of interest. Working with different employers, working with different teams, I kind of found where I want to be, where my niche is, and where my skill sets are. Originally, I kind of had this plan, and I had a very narrow vision of how my career is going to go. What are my options? I didn't realize that, and even this touches on the authenticity thing that I mentioned, where I didn't realize just kind of be yourself and do what you want to do, figure out what works for you, rather than just what you think is a good linear trajectory for your career. So I think that's where I tell myself, just go with the flow, go where it makes you happy. Okay.
I think I definitely would echo everything that everybody said on the panel. Some really excellent points there. For myself, it's more around, focused a lot on building my technical skills, because that was something that I thought is going to really help me kind of push myself in my career. But of course, at the same time, as you're building your technical skills, it is very important to build some of those soft skills and as a personal brand as you start working with your peers, because again, as you grow with your peers, they might be growing in their careers as well, and things with your clients, they might be your colleagues, whatever it might be. So really should be all rounded and not just very, focused on one view.
Okay, so John, probably just to wrap that all up, I'll say, from my perspective, I'll say put yourself out there. It kind of reminds me of my sister. She kept complaining she didn't have a boyfriend, but you don't go out, right? She's always at home, in her room. So go out, meet people, right? So put yourself out there. If you're the social media kind of person, go there, talk about cyber or comment on a post or even just repost an article or something. And also go to events, network with people, meet people, and join the IC2 chapter. I mean, we're all here. Thank the panel. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, MMP, for hosting us. And we're at time. Thank you very much. Please stay behind. We will take group pictures, everyone. Please, when you're leaving, do return your name tag. So I guess we'll all come forward now for pictures, right?
Yeah, that's okay.
All right, please. Everyone to the front.
Welcome to the IC2 Toronto chapter, where cybersecurity professionals come together to learn, connect, and grow.
Joining our chapter means joining a community of like-minded individuals dedicated to advancing the field of cybersecurity.
Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting your career, our events and resources cater to all levels of expertise.
Being part of ISC2 Toronto has helped me stay up to date with the latest trends in cybersecurity.
The networking opportunities that I've made here have been invaluable.
I made connections that help me both professionally and personally.
From monthly meetups to special guest speakers, there's always something happening at ISC2 Toronto chapter.
Join us today.
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 Join us today and take your cybersecurity career to new heights with ISC2 Toronto chapter.